A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for registering for this and joining us today for this webinar that we are organizing, especially for the SMEs to access the markets in the UK. We realized that this was a crying need, given that our SMEs don't have too much support, don't have too many places to go to get information. So we put a panel together. We have an expert panel today. Ably moderated by an expert and an SME herself. So I think it's going to be a super event filled with information and quite useful. We have, if I can, while we wait for the High Commissioner to join us, we will start the session, and I'm sure she will join us through the program. Our purpose in doing this CBB, or the Council for Business with Britain, as you know, is the organization that, the bilateral trade organization that promotes trade between the two countries and FDI into Sri Lanka. So it is a go-to organization for anyone to come in terms of getting information, getting leads, to dealing with the UK in terms of business. Therefore, I know we have a large crowd joining us today. And I would urge all of you to get membership with the Council for Business with Britain, which is under the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, so that you have access to all of that. We're also members of the British Chambers of Commerce, which has 60 British chambers worldwide. And you gain access to all of that by having membership with us. So with that said, I'd like to thank Mr. Ranganathan of Commercial Bank, the MD of Commercial Bank, who's a committee member and who also heads the SME committee on our CBB main committee, for putting this together, and also for Commercial Bank and the team at Commercial Bank for coming forward and organizing this. Thank you very much to Mr. Ranganathan and the team at Commercial Bank. With that, I'd like to introduce our moderator today, Tanya Polanovita Vethamuni, who's no stranger to the business community in Sri Lanka. She's a self-made entrepreneur and the group managing director of IAS Holdings, an entity that she started in 2016. After 20 years of serving in the field of logistics. This is not her first company. I know she's almost like a serial entrepreneur. So you couldn't have a better person than Tanya moderate the session. She knows what it is like to start from scratch and grow a small business into what it is today. She's no more an SME today. She's a big group of companies in the logistics area. Under her guidance and leadership, the company obviously has been successful in securing joint ventures with a multitude of multinational logistics and supply chain companies within its corporate portfolio. Among her many business accolades, she was awarded the Outstanding Woman Entrepreneur of the Year last year for 2019-2020, and also served as the first female chairperson of the Sri Lanka Logistics and Freight Forwarders Association, which is generally a male-dominated association and an industry, I might add. She's been a vice president of CBB. Recently, she was the treasurer of CBB. She served CBB for many long years and is a dedicated member of our council. Thank you, Tanya, for agreeing to moderate the session today. Over to you. I'm sure you'll introduce the panelists and take it from here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roshani, for that kind introduction. Good morning to everyone joining from UK, and good evening to all participants here in Sri Lanka. Thank you for taking time out to attend this session organized by Commercial Bank PLC, collaboration with the Council for Business with Britain in Sri Lanka. The purpose, as mentioned by Roshani, of this session is to discuss practical learning, inspire insights, and provide information on British markets and the different avenues of opportunities specifically for SME businesses. We hope at the end of this session, each and every one of you will take away some learning as to how to expand your business to UK. Before we start our discussions, I would like to present you with some trade statistics between Sri Lanka and UK so that everyone has an understanding of where we are at this moment of time. SME make up to 42% of the contribution to the country's GDP, making 75% of the total number of enterprises. 45% of the workforce is employed in the SME sector. SMEs make up to 20% of the exported goods and 30% of the production value. Micro establishments dominate by trade, while small and medium scale business units are dominated by industry. On that note, I'm pleased to introduce our panel of experts this evening. Let me start with Dr. Lakmini Mendes. Dr. Lakmini Mendes has been serving in the capacity of Minister Commercial at the Sri Lanka High Commission in London since May 2019. She has more than 20 years of work experience in public, private, and semi-government organizations, bearing different responsibilities and performing diverse roles as a country representative, a trade expert, negotiator, commercial and trade officer, lecturer, resource person, management consultant, market research, and a banker. Glad to have you on board with us, Dr. Lakmini. Next up, we have Mr. Suresh Dimel, no stranger to all of us, Chairman of Export Development Board, EDB. Mr. Dimel's company, Lanka Fishing Flies Private Limited, creates handcrafted artificial sport fishing bait for export to niche market in the USA and the world. What started as a cottage industry in his hometown in Nugegoda today employs 200 women in Nugegoda, Tangol, and Ratnapura, and celebrates producing the world's best quality fishing flies for the past 40 years. Suresh believes in building strong ecosystem, local and global, that empower and improve lives of people through collaborative and inclusive relationships. He also strongly believes that people working together can make Sri Lanka the wonder of Asia. Thanks for joining us, Suresh. Moving on, we have Mr. Irfan Tassim, CEO of Ocean Peak Private Limited and committee member of CBB. Mr. Tassim spent nearly 2 decades in the apparel, textile industry in Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, primarily serving in CFO and CEO positions across multiple businesses of Brandex Sri Lanka, premier apparel exporter. After his first exploratory tour to UK in 2011, Irfan ventured into entrepreneurship and set up his own business, Ocean Peak, South Asia's inaugural oceanic farm for finfish producing barramundi based out of Trincomalee, Sri Lanka. Great to have you, Irfan. Lorian Somanatha, Chief Manager Exports, Commercial Bank PLC. Mr. Lorian Somanatha serves as the Chief Manager heading the export division at Commercial Bank. He has over 30 years of banking experience, which includes 70 years in trade finance, handling import and export, with experience in corporate banking and branch banking. Thanks for joining us, Lorian, this evening. Mr. Chin Pereira, Director of Universal Supplier Limited, Universal Europe Suppliers BVT. Mr. Chin Pereira is the Director of Universal Suppliers Limited and Universal Europe Suppliers BVT. The organization represents well-known Sri Lankan and Asian brands on an exclusive basis, and his establishment itself as the largest importer of food and beverage from Sri Lanka and Asia to UK and to Europe, which includes entry into 10 major supermarket chains across the region. Welcome on board, Chin. And finally, on our panel is Mrs. Thana Sivasambu, founder of Rushi Foods. Rushi is an authentic Sri Lankan packaged food range made with 100% natural ingredients. It is a purpose-driven brand that supports Sri Lankan farmers and creates opportunities in sustainable employment in rural villages by assuring fair prices for ingredients sourced directly from farmers. Rushi Food has successfully established itself in the UK market. London is Tana's home, but her native land of Sri Lanka will always hold a special place in her heart. This is a brief introduction of our panel of expertise this evening. A warm welcome to all of you, and thank you for taking the time out to be here. Before we start our discussions, I would like to explain briefly how the format for today will work. Each panelist will be directed with 2 or 3 questions. You will be given 3 to 4 minutes due to time constraint in which to answer the question in order to keep within the duration of the session. Just a little housekeeping for the audience before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your Zoom control panel. You can type your questions in Sinhala or even Tamil, whichever the language you prefer to communicate. We will bring them up during the presentation, and we will also have a time for questions at the end. One more request, other than the speaker, we would request all of you to please have the camera switched off and go mute for the clarity purposes. Let's start. The first question this evening of this interesting session goes to Mr. Lawrence Somanatha and to Mr. Suresh Dimal. There is a widespread of consensus that SMEs can fuel and drive economic recovery. Figures from the Atlantic Council suggest that in developing markets, SME contribute 40% of the GDP, generate 70% of jobs, and typically have a high share of female ownership. Conversely, SMEs took the brunt of the economic decline due to COVID, and economic recovery will depend on their ability to bounce back. So the question, what support has been made available to SMEs in general to survive the pandemic and to recover? If none, then what should be made available? So it goes to Lorian and to Suresh. Maybe we'll allow Suresh to answer, and then Lorian, maybe you can take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya, and good afternoon. The government support has been in the form of loan moratoriums and low interest rates and the general financial support. You know, I think the government has just done the loan moratoriums and the low interest rates. Now, the tricky part about the SME sector in Sri Lanka is that half or more is informal. And when you're informal, you cannot take advantage of these moratoriums or financial instruments, even that the banks offer. Now, I was also saying that, you know, the banks have also offered many different facilities for SMEs these days with the low interest rates and so on. But the informal sector, if I can sort of focus on the informal sector, which is half or more, we don't have much data on that sector either. And these are the people who would have borrowed from informal sources and are having a difficult time. We are seeing an unprecedented situation in pawn broking these days, where people are pawning their gold for money. So this could be some of these SMEs. And So we are, I think this is an opportunity for us to formalize or encourage these informal SMEs to come into the mainstream in some way. Obviously we'll have to educate them and build awareness and do a lot of capacity building at the regional level. And this is where I think the banks can play a big role, because they have a regional network. And we may have to have workshops to get this in informal sector, so that the SMEs in general can be the engine of growth for Sri Lanka's economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Suresh. So anyone who's participating, and if you have not formalized your business, you heard from Mr. Suresh Timel, please do consider formalizing your businesses and reap the advantages that is being offered by the banks and by the government today. Rorian, over to you.
Thanks, Tanya. Just to give an idea of how did the banks accommodate this particular situation. So the SMEs really had to face many challenges due to the unprecedented situation that emerged due to the pandemic. So now we basically operate on a new normal situation where everything has changed. And during difficult times, how far we have gone supporting the SME especially, and even the other corporates or even other exporters who are into business. Just to give a brief idea, during the first two waves of COVID, we extended moratorium facilities or moratorium to over 15,000 SMEs. And when it came to giving concessions, there was around 5,000 SMEs who benefited on the concession. In total, there was around 105 billion which has been dispersed by the bank in facilitating whatever the crisis that they have faced. So how did we do? What were the main areas that we focused first? Was basically we gave these moratorium arrangements to SMEs. Then we went and introduced various concessionary rates in order to, depending on the client's requirement, we gave them time to repay their loans, reschedule their loans, and made them more comfortable in order to overcome this particular situation. So the loan restructuring was done, rescheduling was done and in order to meet their cash flows. So that was some of this thing. Then further we went and did we gave them rebates on interest. We conducted awareness programs to revive or to be able to sustain their particular business, what methods that they could do. And we continuously kept vigil with them. We continuously were able to correspond and see what their requirements that were there. So these were some of the key areas that we focus in uplifting these SMEs during this period. So on the exporter side, of course, we had difficulties. Many exporters found, though they shipped their goods, they found their documents not reaching out to other destinations, because those destinations were also under the lockdown, and they were unable to, the courier companies or maybe the shipping companies were unable to deliver the particular documents for the buyers to take control of their goods. So there were enough and more difficulties which resulted after this pandemic. So these we looked into these issues, and we helped out many exporters to overcome these difficulties, get their shipments cleared out very quickly to limit their demurrage. So these were some of the initiatives that the bank took in helping out the industry.
Thank you, Lorian. There are some areas that you mentioned probably we will speak about again because some clarity is needed, but we will get back to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome, Dr. Lakmini. I don't know whether you were online when we started the session. Thank you for joining us today. We have a question for you. Dr. Lakmini, you have served in the private, public, and semi-government sectors in diverse roles, specifically as a trade expert. In your opinion, what are the business opportunities in the UK market, and what is the best way to position products in the UK market?
Thank you very much, Tanya, and also for the generous introduction. And at the same time, let me say a very good afternoon to all who are joining from Sri Lanka, and also good morning to all joining from UK. Yes, it's a very interesting question. So when I look at the trade statistics, what do I see? I see many opportunities. It's like my glass, water glass here. It's like it's half full. And so that for me, it's full of opportunity. And to start with, Sri Lanka is the second. The UK is the second largest export market for Sri Lanka. And it's about $1 billion US. And when you look at the products, 75 to 78% consists of all apparel products, and which covers chapter 61, 62, and 63. So the point I want to make here is the opportunity is there in one way because Sri Lanka has been branded for apparel as well as for tea. So whoever wants to explore the apparel sector, that is an opportunity because Sri Lanka has been branded already. At the same time, we see the need for diversification because 75 to 78% is huge and it's concentrated on one area, one sector. So that again is the message, the need for diversification. So when diversifying, the ways that we promote is value-added products as well as non-traditional products. So let me give some examples that we can think of what was in the past and also during the COVID and also in the post-COVID era. So like tea, people know about our Ceylon tea, but afterwards of COVID as well as during COVID, there was a great demand for herbal teas. So the herbal teas mixed with ginger, turmeric, or cinnamon, or moringa, we call murunga. So that's another opportunity that was seen in the market. And when it comes to rubber products, yes, we know we are known for these rubber tires and the gloves. But beyond that, there is a demand for toys, and even the toys made of rubber for dogs, toys. So when it comes to coconut products, a decade ago, there wasn't this coconut cream sold in the supermarkets. What do we see now? The shelves are filled with coconut-based products.
Dr. Lakshmi, may I interrupt with you? We have some comments said the line is not very clear and they cannot hear you properly. Is it possible for you to speak a little bit louder if you don't mind? Sorry to have disturbed.
Thank you. Yes, I'll do my best. Maybe some problem with the internet. Anyhow, so let me quickly recap that there is an opportunity for value-added products as well as the non-products. Can you hear me, Tanya? Is it clear now?
Slightly better. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So I took some examples just now to start with tea. So UK knew our Ceylon tea. But during the post-COVID and the COVID and during that era, what did we see? For more opportunities, more demand for the herbal teas, I would say. So made with ginger, turmeric, or cinnamon, moringa, and so on. So the same way, there is a demand for these rubber products, not only tires, but even like toys for pets and the dogs and so on. And for the coconut as well, as I mentioned, and for the spices. So when it comes to food, it's interesting. We've seen, because we meet buyers, we talk to them, and especially after COVID, because now we have the opportunity to meet them physically. And that's the best, I always say. So we come across different demands that they discuss with us. So one was like, you'll be surprised. One buyer asked us whether Sri Lanka could export some jack. So being SME, so that could be one area to think of. And all these ideas, we have all these requests actually, we have communicated to EDB as well. So whoever is interested, they can get in contact with us or with the EDB or with the chambers. So coming back, So again, there is a demand for this frozen food. During COVID time, we saw how the people made their own food. They could not go to these restaurants. So they were locked in the houses and they tried out different food, meals and so on. So again, with beverages. Now we see there's a demand for this coconut drink and health conscious consumers. And these outdoor exercising people, bicycles and other equipments is one. And again, let me give another interesting example for non-traditional product. Once we had an inquiry for cuttlefish bones. There is the Dallo cutter. Very interesting. And this buyer spoke to me and said, we need 4 containers. Cuttlefish bone. And will you imagine for what? It's a pet toy for the dogs. So likewise, we get certain inquiries and we channel it to the relevant authorities. So once again, these were the products mainly that I have discussed. When I look at the services side, because there may be people who are interested in the services and IT BPM services. And for that, one may ask, how do we know? How do we get to know? We commissioned a lot of programs with SASCOM as well. And in 2019, just before the COVID, we had a session at the London Stock Exchange on the IT sector. And one may wonder that this is for the big companies. No, there was this small SME company who were there. And today they have started their own small IT company. So likewise, the opportunity is there if you happen to be there at the right time, at the right place, right? And also what we intend is to promote Sri Lanka as the logistics and the marine offshore engineering hub in Asia, South Asia. So for that matter, we are in the process of working with EDB and also with the chambers over here, at Aberdeen Chamber and the Birmingham Chamber to have a webinar. So webinar will be the first step and we will have the networking and the B2B meetings and it will be extended to a delegation. So be in contact with us to get more details and be part of it. And also, with regard to more opportunities, apart from these products and the services, I would say opportunities also changes with consumer behavior, with their beliefs, with their education, with their consciousness on the health, the planet, and the human beings, people. And that has an intense impact on what they buy and what they use. At the same time, we have come across buyers reaching us and saying that they want to diversify their supplier base. One example was the stationery. So likewise, it can come from different angles. This is a very brief explanation. And getting back to the second part of the question, how you can grab this opportunity. You may have a brilliant idea, a brilliant dream, but it has to come true. And for that matter, how do we get there? And one would be the information. Get the information as much as possible. Do your research, do a little bit of homework, talk to people, talk to your friends and family over here, and get an understanding about the market, consumer, trends. Speak to us. We are not going to charge you. Speak to the EDB, the chambers, and we will give you the information what we have. And read the reviews and learn about the trends, behavior, consumer behavior, and all what you can.
Dr. Lakshmi, sorry to interrupt. Can we get back to the customer behavior shortly? Are you? How many minutes more do you need to complete this?
I think I need just 2 minutes maximum. Yes, and I'll be done.
Okay.
So, so the research and information would make a big part, and then about the product. Have an idea what you want to export to the market, and whether this product is going to be, for example, for tea. I would say it's for the generation who is drinking Ceylon black tea, or is it for the generation, the younger generation who would like the fruity flavor, or the iced tea, or the health-conscious consumer who would like herbal tea or organic tea or green tea. Likewise, think of the niche. You may not have a clear picture, but you must have a vague picture, I would say, and the amount that they would want to spend. So at the the same time, have an idea about the compliances, the certification that is needed in the UK market. And when coming to the pricing, this again is very important for SMEs and even for any business. And how can I get some idea about the price? One thing is you can go on to these online, supermarket online, if it's a food product. Just have an idea how much it's been sold in the market. So you get an idea of it. And pricing. And how do you want to have this product, have your product? Are you going to find an agent? Do you want to do directly, do you want to sell it? Or is it online? Online is very popular these days. And I'm sure this is the reason why the mission has got on board Tana and team, because Tana does miracles on her online website. So she will be able to explain more elaborate on the online selling. And Tin is an agent. And so Tin will be able to give you a lot of insights about how it's been done. And the other one is the promotion, and which we really lack. So my advice would be have a nice website, because it's hard nowadays with the restrictions we meet suppliers and sellers. So protect yourself on the website, but be honest and have the right information on that. So this becomes a phase for you. And also be prepared to make presentations, send some samples, and to participate trade fairs when it is available. And also have the right attitude when working with these UK buyers. And packaging is another important one, because sometimes we are a little bit adamant. This is what we have seen. Some suppliers, some companies, or some exporters, they're a bit adamant with their designs. But be flexible, because it may not suit 100% in this market. So the color combination and the designs, be flexible to change it if it's needed. And have an idea about the process and procedures. And also lastly, not least, but have an idea about the competitors. It could be locally, but can be internationally as well. So that's all, Tanya, and maybe I'll be happy to answer any questions. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Lakmini. And it's very interesting to realize there are so many non-traditional products are being marketed or they're being promoted. So everyone who's participating, please have a look at these non-traditional. I think there's great opportunity in UK market for you. As Dr. Lakmini mentioned, you are well-established business that export products to UK. In your experience, what are the challenges and any barriers you encountered at the commencement of your business, and how did you overcome these? We would appreciate in brief if you can touch on these points, the barriers, and how did you overcome? Thank you.
Thanks, Tanya. Thanks for the introduction, and good afternoon to all the participants in Sri Lanka. So yes, in terms of challenges, I would say it's twofold. One is in terms of breaking into a new market with a new product. So learning about the import regulations, the customs clearance, what are the documentations. For example, rice imports need a license, animal-based products needs a special health certification. So understanding those regulations in terms of food imports from Sri Lanka, and also then the regulations such as the labeling regulations. So there are the mandatory regulations in terms of the ingredients and what is permitted, what is not permitted. And also in terms of labeling, making sure the customer understands. So one of the classic ones is like even putting the chili heat, like, you know, mild, medium or hot, because educating the customer. So there are a lot of nuances like that in terms of understanding the market and learning the regulations and adapting your product to fit the market. That was one side. And the other side, the challenge, I would say, in sourcing the right supplier. So I spent a lot of time working with different suppliers, trying to match our requirements with what the suppliers are able to offer. So we, as a business for purpose, we have like certain ethical guidelines that we like to follow in terms of ethical sourcing, not using artificial chemicals or preservatives in products, and paying a fair price to the suppliers. So we needed to identify the right suppliers who match our ethical requirements. And then the MOQ. I know SMEs get excited about export orders and they think, we're going to be doing large volumes and things like that. But me being an SME myself, actually a micro entity, the volumes are small. And so the supplier should understand that in terms of working in small volumes and also understanding the concept of white labeling. What does it mean? I know a lot of brands, when they have established, they're very proud of their own brand. So when you introduce the concept of white labeling, because we create a brand to fit the market, to fit the purpose, so we have to come up with a new branding. So the supplier understanding the issues about white labeling and wanting to work in kind of such an environment under a different brand. And the MOQs, as I said, we are an SME myself, so the volumes are small, and also because we had a kind of a risk of introducing a new product into a new market. We had to test the market, so we couldn't bring larger volumes. So we had to test the market in small ways and make changes, make adaptations. So the supplier understanding those nuances and also the learning and product development. When I say new markets, so we introduced Sri Lankan cuisine to the British market. So Sri Lankan cuisine is new. They're very familiar with Indian, and they kind of tend to relate Sri Lankan because of the geographical proximity. They think it's like Indian, but our cuisine is very distinct and very different. So that's why in our range, I chose products like Kata Sambal, Sini Sambal, Pol Sambal, because we wanted to create that Sri Lankan identity when we introduced the Sri Lankan products. So a matter of educating the customers. And although we wanted to keep the authenticity, the taste, the recipe, we didn't want to modify it to the market, but also adapting to the customer behavior. So for example, reducing the fat, the salt and the sugar, and testing it. And when we started, we had palm oil in our products and the customers didn't like it. So we had to do product development and change it to coconut oil or vegetable oil. So the supplier being in that mindset to learning and understanding and engaging in new product development, it was a bit of a challenge to start with, because we were new here in trying to understand the market, and for the suppliers it was new because we were trying to do something different. So I think that was my main challenge, but coming a long way. Fortunately, we've got wonderful suppliers now who work with us and who work in product development, market testing, sending out new recipes, going backwards and forwards. So it is an ongoing process.
Thanks, Tana. I think takeaway from that is it's very important when we are getting to a new market to understand the customer behavior and the mindset and likes and dislikes, especially in your industry, the food, it's very close to one's heart. So thank you very much. Really appreciate
it. One interesting learning for me as well was that when we had introduced our Pol Sambal, in the West, coconut is associated with sweet things, chocolates and biscuits and cookies. They don't think of coconut being a savory or a spicy thing. So although it has in the label, it's got chilies and everything, it doesn't register with people. So they taste the coconut sambal and go, oh my God, it's hot. I'm like, duh, it's on the label. So things like that. It was interesting.
Thank you, Tana. Chin, you've been very successful in the UK market. Can you share with us in brief your success story and advise our SMEs on how to become a successful exporter in the UK market?
Very good afternoon to Sri Lanka and very good morning to UK. Thank you for the compliment saying that very successful, Tanya. That's a great compliment, by the way. And yeah, going back, first of all, thank you for having me this wonderful production of this conference. This is really great. And this is what actually is been lacking for years and years in Sri Lanka for many years. So along with the CBP to come forward with the commercial bank and doing such kind of event is a very productive thing. And this is being happening in many other countries, and we are participating for to many other countries. So this is a great event. And I also want to say a big thank you to Suresh from EDB for facilitating this sort of events, as always. And Dr. Lakmini being wonderful all the time to have me in the UK. So it's a great asset for us to develop our businesses and expand our businesses and work with Sri Lanka. And as she always being very fascinating of Sri Lanka, of Sri Lankan food. And going back to the questions, Tanya, probably the answers that I'm going to give it to you is will be in very ground level ones, because I think that's what the people would expect to see from us. The real output of what the exporter should be doing in Sri Lanka to become a successful exporter from Sri Lanka, because I myself was exporter from Sri Lanka before I started importing in the UK. And even in the UK, we started very small, although we are into a very big, good major supermarket chains, not just the UK, across the UK as well. Just to give you a bit of a background of the UK, as you all know, UK has 67 million population in the UK. So, and the UK is the 7th largest economy in the world. So you can imagine UK is being one of the very outspoken place for your export businesses. And then I want to give you a very good insight. The biggest importer to UK is USA at the moment. And the second is the EU, although our largest partner is EU. The largest import is coming from USA. Why did I say that? Because the statistics was laid out, and unfortunately, there's a huge potential Sri Lanka. And if you looked at the league table, the biggest importers to the UK, at the moment, Sri Lanka is not even in the first 50. So that's the real statistics of the value from the UKBA. And if you looked at this statistic, the India is the 17th largest importer to UK, 17th, and 42nd beat the Pakistan, our neighbors. So you can see, if you looked at Sri Lanka, India, Pakistan, we almost have the same range of product that we can offer. But India became 17th and Pakistan became the 42. And so we have an ample opportunity to become less than 50 or less than 100 in the FMCG range. So what do we have to do? And then also to give you a good idea about India, 70% of Indian 60 to 70% of Indian exports are from SMEs. So only 30% is coming from the large industry. So there's an ample opportunity for SMEs in Sri Lanka to not to grab Indian or Pakistan, but to enter into this UK market. What do we have to do as an exporter to become successful in Sri Lanka? As I said, Tanya, these are very ground level ones, but this makes huge difference. Trust me on this, because this is what I have experienced in my 20 years of experience, Sri Lanka versus many other countries. First of all, you need to get your business attitude correct towards the focus on exports. Why do I say that? This is not a blame to Sri Lankan SMEs or to any companies in Sri Lanka. What we have experienced from Sri Lanka is the responses and the flexibilities are in a huge lacking stage. So if there's an inquiry, if there's an issue, if there's a thing that you need to discuss, respond to your buyer ASAP. Just treat that as a yesterday's inquiry rather than today's inquiry. Get on board and try to resolve it and work with your buyer in UK. That's very, very, very unique. And the flexibility. You have wonderful products. There's no question on it. Sri Lanka can have a huge range of wonderful products. But as Tanya explained, or Dr. Lakmini well explained, there are certain specifications need to be amended before the products come into UK markets. It is because, not that the Sri Lankan ingredients are bad, but here, of course, in the UK, there's a set of different parameters applied. So the products is in Sri Lanka. So get the products first, but try to have that flexibility to change the product specifications before you start to import them, export them. Because otherwise what will happen? It will come into the port, or maybe released, if you're lucky, it will be released from the port. But if it goes into the market, if it is captured by the authorities, if they are not meeting with the right standard or specification, that will be more into a product recalling and huge damage, change your brand damage, your money damage, your relationship is damaged. For example, certain ingredients used in Sri Lanka not match or not permitted. Again, nothing wrong with those ingredients to use in Sri Lanka, but again, there are different parameters or standards in the UK. So work with your buyer, work with your importer, get those identified, clarify them, and change that product before you even think of exporting. Not just the ingredient, labeling, display modes. And so product is there, have the flexibility, have that attitude to change that product in your portfolio. And second thing I would say is many Sri Lankan companies are, well, nothing wrong with that again, are very sales oriented. What I mean by sales oriented, don't even imagine the minute that your products being departed from port of Sri Lanka doesn't mean that that's it, that's your job finished. It's not something like that. Many Sri Lankans want sell, sell, sell. All what they expected from their buyer, from their importer, is get them to sell it, sell it, sell it. But it's very product and sales oriented. For UK market, I'm afraid it won't work like that. You need to be very much market oriented, very much market oriented. You work with your importer or you work with your buyer, and you don't treat that as your buyer, treat it as yours. When the products comes to UK, just imagine as that you are in the UK. Just imagine your buyer, not the buyer, that you are the buyer. You are the person that you are distributing, or you are the one who are importing it. And have that have that understanding, that flexibility, that working relationship is very, very, very important. And entering into a right partner in UK is very much needed. So identify the right partner and work with the distributor. And it's like a marriage. It's like a marriage. Once you enter into a relationship with your importer or buyer, you need to work with them. And then you can't have multiple buyers. You will, I'm sure that you will know what will happen in a marriage when you have multiple partners. So just like that, have a one partner identified, be that partner, work with that distributor or importer, and try to be clear, be trustworthy, and support each other, and work with that importer or the buyer, and go along with it.
Then we might have to cut it off from there. We come back to you, and maybe you can share your experience. Very interesting attitude. Be proactive, be flexible, consider your partners beyond just a sale. Your partner should be your customer and understand the customer's customer. Very important. Thank you, Chin. We'll come back to you again shortly. Irfan, thanks for waiting very patiently. You served in apparel and textile industries over 20 years before venturing into business of your own. We believe that inspiration for this was brought about after a visit to UK in 2011. How has the association with UK has impacted your business venture? Maybe if you can explain to us briefly, that would be great.
All right, thanks, Tanya, and hello to all my fellow panelists and all my fellow SMEs as well. So I think full disclosure first is that growing up in the 70s, I think I had a great affinity to products that were coming from the UK, primarily based on build quality and the quality of the products that we kind of experienced. You know, I mean, some of the brands like Marmite, Matchbox toys, you know, stuff like that. You know, so we kind of grew up with that, and I obviously had a little soft spot for products from the UK. So having said that, yes, I spent until 2011, I think, in the apparel industry, and I had the urge to go from being a apparel corporate executive to becoming a farmer. Then one of the first things I did was, as I looked around Sri Lanka, our largest resource were the oceans. So I decided very quickly on oceanic farming. and how UK was involved was because in the North Sea, there was a hype of activity that was going on the farming aspect. So that's what led me to the UK approximately 10 years ago. And when I got onto those cages in the North Sea that were producing the Atlantic salmon and the rainbow trout, it was love at first sight, and it was something that I immediately realized that Sri Lanka needed. So for me, in terms of the relevance of this topic and the heading, I'm just going to kind of reverse it a little bit, and I think it would also touch upon what Chin also touched upon earlier. It's not about having a product and wanting to sell, but in my case, I actually just wanted to create an industry, bring technology, bring know-how, and then reverse back into the export market with the product. So that's the essentially the story. So from Scotland, what we did was we scouted for a farming company that now has become my joint venture partner in Sri Lanka. We have in Trincomalee, South Asia's first ocean farm, and we produce barramundi or sea bass, the Asian sea bass. So that's essentially the start of how this transition took place from apparel as a job, as an executive, to becoming an entrepreneur and becoming involved with the UK. In terms of advice, I think my essential message to our fellow SMEs would be, I think also like what Chin said earlier, if you want to export the product, even if you want to produce a product for the domestic market, I think the first point is that you need to make it a world-class product. Forget about all of the rest. Just focus on your product, on your product development, just so that you hit that benchmark, you hit that sweet spot, whether it's for the domestic. A consumer, to me, is a consumer anywhere. I think that's one of the problems I see, that we have a product for the domestic market and another one for the international market. I think as entrepreneurs, if we start to produce a product that's acceptable to the global consumer, you then have your first victory there. So in our case, I think the learnings that I would like to part with, and some of the questions I saw was, I am a furniture producer, can I export? I think, again, I would, just go back and see the global marketplace, especially in the UK. Are there furniture producers? Is there technology that we can borrow from them and to make our products world class, so that we are not just a national producer, we can become a global producer with global repute. So that's the next bit. I think in terms of also in our case, what we did, because we didn't want to take chances with the machinery and the equipment, we brought all our cage equipment from the UK, from Scotland, all the way from Scotland. It went against the grain of the whole business. We typically would want to go and pick up some cheap equipment from somewhere. Not necessarily will that help in our endeavor to create a world-class product. So again, focus on the technology in terms of getting the best, so that you can have that world-class product. Again, in terms of our partnership with the UK, one of the key things that we brought into the business was environmental health and safety factors. These are things that we didn't have. Because we were setting up the first company in Sri Lanka and South Asia, there was no pre-set of information that we can rely on. So we went according to the SEPA, or the Scottish Environmental Protection Act, and we kind of stuck to that. Again, that proved very fruitful for us later in the day. So I think these are essentially, Tanya, I'm trying to help you with reducing my time a little bit. Finally, you fast forward after all of these processes, we ended up with a product that really sold itself to not just the UK, but to Australia, to USA, and several other countries. So I would not take a product and hurry to sell. I would really start focusing on the product, the technology, know-how, everything that goes in, then really start presenting the product to customers wherever in the world. Yeah. So this is my few 2 cents. Yeah.
Great, Irfan. We'll come back to you, and it's a very interesting point. It's not just the product, but for you to develop a product, there's a support that you can also receive from UK. So just don't focus on only product, but to develop your product, you can get support from UK as well. Suresh, as we mentioned before, you're not a stranger to SMEs. You're helping hand to all startups. It's also understood that EDB works very closely with the Sri Lankan High Commission in UK to promote Sri Lankan products. Can you elaborate and make our audience aware of what support is available to SMEs to help themselves ready for the export market and to find markets overseas?
Yeah. My first recommendation for an SME would be to go through our website, which is srilankabusiness.com. That's an easy one to remember, because it's full of information. In fact, if there was a complaint, it would be that it's not, it's too full. So it's difficult to navigate sometimes, but go through it, and then with specific questions, you can come to us. We have, at the moment, even for the COVID pandemic, we have 14 help desks, 14 phone numbers there that people can reach out on any sector, whether it's agricultural or industrial products. They can come and ask us questions about how to meet a certain challenge. EDB's role is to be a facilitator, a promoter, monitor, policy advisor, and a knowledge provider. So we work very closely with the foreign missions on the promotion side and market intelligence. So we always know that there is, at this time, there is a trade shift going on, and there is a lot of changes happening, unprecedented. So it's difficult for us to say what's going to happen tomorrow. So therefore, we have to be very focused on the trends. And there are opportunities, just like we are losing some things, we are also have opportunities for new things. And this is what the biggest opportunity that we have now, that we didn't have a year and a half ago, is this virtual conferencing technology. And today we have a huge bandwidth in these webinars. Now, for instance, right now we have 300 people participating in this webinar, which is, you know, a very costly endeavor if we had to do this physically. Now this is my 4th webinar for the day today. So we are constantly doing this. A month ago, I had a webinar with China, South China, with 11,000 participants. So I think this is a fantastic new opportunity. Even when we used to do it physically, we could take 15 people to China, you know, or help them to go to China. But not like this, you know, there are 150 Sri Lankan entrepreneurs who participated in that. So, you know, don't underestimate the value of those things. And I totally agree with Irfan and Chin and everybody who talked to us right now, because you have to understand the market. And EDB can help you do that. You know, if you come with specific, you know, needs. First of all, do your own research, you know, and then find something that you like to do, and then come to EDB and we will help you to develop that. So organizing trade fairs, now some of them are virtual, then inward, outbound trade delegations, which used to happen, those are also now online. We have B2B meetings online, business forums, and then awareness and product development forums. The objective of you know, the market assistance, now we do have periodically, we advertise market assistance programs and develop the different assistance programs, brand development programs, local brands, things like that, which also are, you can find a whole list of them in the EDB website. And there's a lot of stuff that I think the easiest thing for me to do is to tell you to go to the websites, because, you know, now some of the questions I was looking at the chat line, most of them have answers in the website. But if you don't have, please contact us, contact information. So, you know, anything goes when it comes to facilitation or promotion. You ask us a question and we'll somehow find some answers to you. EDB is an ecosystem. EDB connects with foreign missions, connects with all the government agencies, connects with all the private the chambers and associations. So we are sort of the government apex body, and has been, and we have about 500 members in our advisory councils, mostly private sector. So EDB is has a wealth of knowledge, and please come and we will help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Suresh. Very, very encouraging message to all the SMEs. Please do visit ETB website and you can get a lot more information than what you heard just now from Suresh. Lauren, coming back to you. You know, financing is one of the biggest hurdles for SMEs. I think we will all agree to that. Can you please provide advice on what are the ways in which commercial bank can provide new SME or entrepreneur to engage in export products and services, and any risk involved in such methods?
Yeah, yes, Tanya. If I'm to explain about commercial bank, of course, we have a 100-year legacy, which has come over a period. And on the very inception itself, we were known as a trade bank. So we now see the real grooming of our large exporters, how they started on as SME customers, and they have built their entire career with commercial bank. And today they are one of the finest exporters in Sri Lanka. So even the other day I met one customer, he said, I've been banking with you over 35 years. And I remember the first day, and he mentioned the gentleman's name who granted him the loan for around 10,000 rupees. And today he's one of the top exporters in a particular sector. So this is where the commercial bank has catered to the entire export industry, whether it may be a small time exporter or a big time exporter. So onboarding a SME, of course, we have the onboarding requirement. That's a normal customer due diligence that we have. And we have an array of many products that we can offer this customer. So it's apart from the routine current account, savings account, and the fixed deposits. We also cater to foreign currency accounts. So as an exporter, he's eligible to earn foreign exchange. He's a foreign exchange earner. So then he's entitled to open a business foreign currency account. So having a foreign currency cash flow, he definitely has the liberty, or he has the opportunity to borrow in foreign currency. So his foreign currency earnings are going to definitely benefit for him in today's context, where he needs to pay off his imports if he has. So the bank won't hesitate in paying off his imports with today's context of the situation that is there. So these are some of the key products that we have for an exporter. Even recently, the central bank also introduced a product called external commercial borrowing. So this is where if the exporter has the liberty or has the opportunity to borrow from overseas, or if there's a foreign lender willing to visit, so he can straight away go and borrow from him, and those monies could come to Sri Lanka. And if he is a foreign exchange earner, he could set off that, start paying that particular loan over a period. So these are some facilities that exporter could definitely enjoy if he banks with us. So apart from this, for SME, we onboard a SME. When we onboard a SME, we have the SME business circle. So that is the very initial thing where we take him on to that. From there, we elevate him based on his operation, or based on his performance. We elevate him to a biz club. So when he is entered into these particular categories, he enjoys an array of interests, flexible interests, and maybe new types of loans that are being able to given to him. So these are some of the SME products that we have, where we help the SMEs on. So if exporter also has the opportunity, if he doesn't want to borrow from the bank, but if he's dealing with the bank, he wants to get to know the buyer status and the whereabouts of the buyer. So these arrangements we have. We in fact go into details in verifying the buyer's reports, where we have arrangement with Dun & Bradstreet, which is one of the global providers of business data analysis. So they give us reports and some sort of idea the exporter is able to get. Furthermore, we also have a network of more than 1,000 banks. We deal with it, which is spread over many destinations in the world. So we can reach out to any of those destinations where the customers want to send their export items, or when they want to send their documents to those destinations. So these are something that we have been having over a period, and we really thrive in giving the maximum to our customer to enjoy these benefits.
Thanks a lot, Lauren. It's encouraging to know not just the financing itself, but you will also do a customer validation for SMEs and entrepreneurs. So that's great news, because that's very encouraging to have such systems available with the commercial bank. Thank you. Tana, coming back to you. I'm sure our audience this evening would like to hear about the latest consumer trends, especially since now the UK is out of COVID restrictions.
Yes, so the consumer landscape has kind of shifted quite a bit since the pandemic, and now more than ever, health is at the forefront of everybody's mind. And because of this, the governments have been there's pressure to take action and to introduce legislations about healthy foods. So as far as food is concerned, now the focus is to balance healthy elements with premium flavors, because of course you eat for pleasure, your food has to be tasty, but at the same time it has to be healthy. So as far as the UK and Europe is concerned, at the moment there is heavy focus on what they call the HSS regulations, which is high fat, salt and sugar food. So there's pressure on government, and I think in 22 and 23 there are going to be legislations about the food content and labeling regulations, like if your food has got high fat or high sugar, high salt, you have to highlight that on the label, like a pack of cigarettes, you have to say high fat, high salt, or whatever. So you create the awareness to the customers. Those legislations are coming into play. And then Europe is also innovating with products that like have natural sweetness. I mean, that's a huge trend. The functional fibers, what they call the inulins, so where the natural fructans are there. So these type of foods are incorporated into like chocolates and biscuits. So they're natural food sweetness rather than artificial, like sugars or even artificial sweeteners. And the other trend that is evolving is the plant-based diet. So that is moving from the vegan trend. Now it is more about plant-based. So deriving all your main part of your proteins and your nutrients from plants rather than animal produce. That is huge, and that market is really evolving. So people are kind of, because sometimes being vegan also is not sustainable. So it's coming back to like the good old days where you balance, you have meat only once a week or something like that, and then try and get more nutrients out of your plant-based diet. That's a huge trend. And the other one I would say is traceability and sustainability. Customers are very concerned about traceability, like where it's coming from, who's making it, are they exercising ethical procedures, and how it's manufactured. And that's part of the sustainability, and especially the younger, the millennials or the Gen Z, they're very concerned about who to buy their products from. They would boycott corporates who are not complying to ethical measures. So this is huge, and we ourselves, we are investing hugely in technology on traceability. So the farm to fork concept is quite big. So people knowing the journey of the food that they're eating, where it's been, what has been done. So as I said, with the technology company in Sri Lanka, we are investing hugely into that, into identifying the source of our product to the end product, so that our customer will be able to see actually which farmer has produced this food. You know, Pereira in Ambalangoda has done this for us to be eating it today. That level of information, it is not legislation, but that is what customers are looking for. Legitimate people, SMEs, small farmers, small producers, because the consumers want to support that kind of environment rather than going into corporate consumerism. So those are the trends. Yeah, so that's what we are working on heavily as well. And I quite like Irfan said, we are actually perfecting the process now. We are creating the product, the model that the customers are looking for. And we are sure once we have got that done, we will be able to sell everywhere. And especially being a digital brand, we sell online, we sell on Amazon, and we know our customers will find us.
Thanks, Tana. I like to link that with Chin. We just heard from Tana about the consumer trends, specifically the being ethically produced and traceability in the UK market. Can you also elaborate to us who are the potential buyers in the UK market and how our consumers can reach them?
Yes, Tanya. I mean, to start with, I would say that many Sri Lankans, when I get the inquiries, they're asking how many Sri Lankans living in the UK and what's the market for Sri Lanka. But I would first tell to anybody who come from Sri Lanka to export, while there's a huge population of Sri Lankans are living in the UK, still I would recommend you to not just to consider Sri Lanka, of course, to have the authority of Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is always go far beyond, which is what the universal supplier has been doing for the last few years, and that is where the success also came in. So if you look at the markets out of from UK, out of this 67 million population, there are about 2.8 million Asians are living in this market, and also Afro-Caribbean of 2 million as well. So and the good thing about Asian people, they actually stay with their taste all the time. So there's a huge population in Sri Lanka for Asia in the UK. Plus, the good news is like most of the British people, white people now tend to consume a lot of Asian products in the UK simply because of the taste and the range and also the quality of the product. So it is a market for a diversified market. And what are the markets? There are a few sectors of the market. I will translate this market into a Sri Lankan context, so probably SMEs can understand betterly than trying to give you in the UK context. In the UK context, in Sri Lankan context, there's something called GT, general trade, where all SMEs trade on. Same thing is there in the UK. We normally call as independents. We call here as independents. That's the small type of shops scattered across the country. There's a huge turnaround of independent stores are there. So that's one sector that it's just like the GT sector in here. And GT sector has a lot of classifications, like in the GT sector itself has sort of a franchise arrangement, own shops. The owner has few shops like chain stores, so convenience stores. So that sort of a GT market is there. Is a huge GT market is in the UK itself. And then there's another market called MT here in Sri Lankan context that goes as a modern trade. Here, of course, same thing is there, but we normally don't call as MT, but if you categorize as MT, there are MT market here. It's called, one is the wholesalers, we normally call as cash and carries for those wholesalers in here. So it's just like the wholesalers in Sri Lanka, we normally call them as cash and carry. So if you heard the name called cash and carry, which means they are a wholesale company in the UK, and also supermarkets, we normally call as multiples. So if you heard the name called multiples, which means the supermarket. Many Sri Lankan people, actually Asian people, are asking can we directly supply to supermarket? The answer to that question is more or less no. It's because that many multiples in here, supermarkets in here, do not like to work with international buyers directly. It is not because that they actually don't like to. It is just like the Tani said, traceability, responsibility, accountability is what it matters in here. And also, they just simply don't have time, money, and the labor for this custom regulation, trading standard regulation, parameters, import regulation, health regulation. So they get that, let that business to do their importers, and then 90% of the supermarkets in here are directly engaged with the local people, local importer or local distributor in here. So although there's a supermarket there, Universal Suppliers, as we are actually representing 10 major supermarkets in the UK, but the way that happened is that we represent a lot of brands from Sri Lanka into the supermarket level, but not directly, because they don't, usually they do not entertain unless they are going for contract manufacturing, where just like the Nike and all this and that are happening in apparel industry, they directly go and get their production done under their own brand. So if I had to go, who are the buyers? Yes, the buyers are again the importers. There are certain importers are there. Their business is just importing. They are not into the distribution. Second type of buy, importers are distributors in the UK. So then that's a second type of buyers. And third is agent. You can have your own agent. You can appoint your own agent. Or you can have your own agent, or else you can be you can represent somebody else as your agent in the UK as your buyers in there.
Okay. Just a quick question on that. So is there any link or any suggestion how SMEs can have easy access about this information apart from through the High Commission?
Yes, definitely there are good ways. The best way is this, having reliable contacts and known contacts, because for example, Universal Suppliers, we have 600 product portfolios, and the labor is a huge issue in here. So the last thing that the buyer wanted is waste their time, and they just don't have the time. So if your leads is coming from a reliable source, known party, so they always take it very serious. So try to always, maybe it's not something that you would like to listen, but that's the ground level. If you have somebody, or if you try to find somebody who have some link or some reliable sources to get into the buyer's inbox, rather than just sending the bombard with the emails one after the other. So that's the best way. And of course, the second way is like chambers and embassies. Lakshmi is doing a great job in here. So that's one of the great things. And EDB is also there to facilitate them. And one thing I would like to address is that in the UK, there are a lot of online trade platforms and directories. For example, if I'm not allowed to say that, I would not do that, but trade sites like Alibaba. If you go to the Alibaba, all the Chinese business has given the facilities to Alibaba to find their buyers. There are same type of trade platforms. Online platforms are available in the UK markets. So you can get that registered your name in there and your product portfolio, your company portfolio, short one, not a lengthy emails. So these are there. So you can get that. And the business magazines. There are a lot of business magazines periodically and regularly coming out. You can advertise your company's details in there. You can also find the buyers from there. So those things are also available. So just to summarize, trade contacts, the number one, embassies and chambers, EDB, of course, and online trade directories, trading platforms, and like business magazine, they're the best way to find the buyers.
Thank you, Chair. Very valuable information. Coming back to Dr. Lakmini, and maybe Suresh also can comment about it after Dr. Lakmini. Could you please explain UK market access opportunities, maybe related to what Chin spoke a little while ago, and how to get the tariff benefits? Very interesting subject these days. Maybe briefly, if you can explain and give some briefing on that to our audience, we really appreciate.
Yeah, thank you, Tanya. Hopefully I am being heard now.
Yes, much clearer than before.
Much clearer, yeah. Sorry, and my apologies for that. Would have been some internet issue here. And to coming back, the tariffs are, of course, indeed, very much important nowadays as well. And when we talk about the market access, we all know that UK was part of the EU until 2019. And with the Brexit, UK developed their own trade policy. Very briefly, there are three areas. I mean, I would say the UK GT, their global tariff, and the UK GSP scheme, and FTAs that they have signed with other trading partners comprised of trade policy, which was passed in 2020. So all these three are important for the exporters. So let me very briefly explain how it can be important. So starting with the UK GT, that is the global tariff. This is the MFN tariff. The exporters, companies would know what the MFN tariff is. And this was published on 19th May 2020. And as an outcome of the public consultation process that we had with consumers, buyers, international organizations, civil organizations, everyone. And the thing is, at this point, we also made submissions, and mission also made a lot of presentations to give them an understanding, keep them aware of Sri Lanka's situation. We were successful, and we have got the needed protection for our top exporters, and also from the preference erosion, and the needed protection from the competitors' products as well. So that is the normal tariff, I would say. The next one is more advanced, UK GSP scheme. So along with the Brexit, after the Brexit, what UK implemented was the same EU GSP plus scheme as during this transition period, and thereafter from 1st of January 2021, 1st of January this year, they replicated this EU GSP scheme. However, there are certain differences as well. So in this UK GSP scheme, there are three parts. One is for the LDCs. Second one is known as the general framework, which is also similar to the general GSP scheme. And the third one, enhanced framework, that is more or less the GSP plus scheme. So under that, Sri Lanka and our exports, they benefit 0% for around 7,000 products. And the differences you may have encountered would have been the REC system. REC system is no longer there. REC system is the certificate of origin, and it's more or less a self-declaration. But with the implementation of the UK GSP scheme, they have introduced the Form A and Statement on Origin. In a minute, I will get back to that as well. But however, now we will see how this is going to be important for the exporters. So when someone has the great idea and product, they would always want to know what the tariff is, to understand their profitability, the profit, the pricing strategy, all tagged along with that. Therefore, how do we know the tariff for our product? So in a minute, we will share that link, the magic link with the participants, where anyone who has the code can key in the HS code and get an understanding what the tariff for. At the same time, if you put the competitors country or any other country you like to know what sort of tariff they are entitled for, you can obtain that as well to get an understanding. So third again, another point I think is important here is now more or less the EU GSP scheme was replicated, but right at the moment, the UK is interested in introducing their bespoke, their own GSP scheme, which is set to be implemented in 2022. And they want this to be more flexible, more relaxed, and to take away certain hindrances that had been previous EU GSP plus had been on trade. These days, there is a submission process going on, an open consultation, where whoever is interested, the company is interested, can be part of it. And we will share that link as well. There again, I want to make this point. This is the mission has informed all the relevant ministries, Foreign Ministry, Trade Ministry, Finance Ministry, the Department of Commerce, DP Chambers, and the Department of Commerce is coordinating all these submissions, sector basis as well. And also EDB is assisting them And also the trade chambers are also assisting them with the feedback and the comments and so on. So the deadline is on the 12th of September and it's in progress. And the link will be also shared if someone is interested. And this is another opportunity. If you have a product or in the future you want to have that product, to give your comments, consider it as a zero product, if zero duty product, if it is not already zero duty product at the moment. So it's an opportunity. And at the same time, you may wonder what is the process? You have the product, now you have an idea of the tariff and the competitors' tariffs as well. How should I get about? The next stage would be, if you are very serious about exporting to the UK market, and if you have found an exporter as well, you will have to register with the Department of Commerce. And thereafter, periodically, you will have to give them the information about the shipments, because in this scheme, in this process, the UK authority will ask for verification in the future. For that, basically for that matter, we will be asking, the Department of Commerce will be asking for certain data to be recorded in the office. And once you are registered with them, you can proceed. And the only thing is, if your product is eligible, they will say it's eligible. And also, based on the cost statements and so on, they will tell you whether this product is eligible for the UK GSP scheme. And so you don't have to pay any money to obtain any certification, because it's a self-declaration that you have to make, and you can proceed. So I think I would have answered one question from Mr. Zaruk, who had asked about the certification when exporting. So basically, I think I have covered, Tani. If there are any more specific questions, I'll be very happy to answer. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Lakmini. Suresh, can you briefly take that on and give your comments? Then we will take a few questions from our participants.
Yeah, I think Dr. Lakmini explained the UK context very well. But there is something very, very important that the SMEs need to understand, and that's something that Irfan talked about very clearly. And even my personal experience exporting, I feel that something that is missing in the SMEs in Sri Lanka, they do not seem to value relationships. Now, whether it is with your bank or your joint venture partner or your customer or the EDB, you have to develop a relationship. And I'm finding that most of the successful exporters have built these relationships. And some that are struggling are the ones who don't have a good relationship. They are unable to go to the banks for financing. They are unable to come to the EDB because they have maybe let the EDB down somewhere down the road. Or you see, I think that building, it's like a customer, and you have to put yourself in a customer's shoes. Now, recently I was asked a question about, can't the EDB get direct links for SMEs? So when we look at a customer, when a customer comes to the EDB and wants a supplier, the customer wants a recommendation, wants a track record. And usually, even if we put ourselves in the customer's shoes, that's what we would want, right? So this is something we have to give very important consideration to, is that don't get angry with the EDB when a customer doesn't take on your product, because what it really means is you have to build a relationship. And usually the best way now, like Irfan did and I did, we did it with joint venture partners. They gave us the technology, they explained to us about the markets, and we are able to do a world-class product. So we focused on developing a world-class product with technology and expertise and even financing from joint ventures. Sri Lankans, in general, I think when you, like in the US, whether it was Apple or Microsoft or any other company, really, they are all joint ventures. There was equity funding. In Sri Lanka, we always go to loan funding or loan shark funding when it comes to SMEs. Now, this is where I think we fail, is because, you know, the banks are not exporters. Okay, the banks just give you money, and they will maybe teach you some financial literacy. But if you had a joint venture partner, they would give you sometimes the market and also the technology. So I would encourage people to build these relationships. And today, now 40 years ago, when I started my business, I had to travel all over the world to learn about it. And fortunately, I was overseas at the time and I was able to learn. And like Irfan said, what he learned in Scotland, I was on the other side. I was catching fish. And, you know, I learned the sport, and I learned what my customers wanted. And it was quite easy for me to develop a product, and a niche product, because I think Sri Lanka is ideally suited for niche products. Now, Chin very clearly said about us being unable to supply a supermarket. Now, you see, Sri Lanka is a small country. And the most important thing if you're going to do to a supermarket is volume and price. And those are two things Sri Lanka has always struggles with, okay, in anything, whether it's apparel or food products or agriculture, anything, we don't have the capacity. If you look at every successful factory or exporter in Sri Lanka, they will tell you they have capacity issues, okay? Whether it's agricultural produce, everybody has capacity issues. And that is where a lot of times your buyers get frustrated because you are not a reliable supplier. So I always say there are three very, very important things. One is quality. It's very important, like Shin explained. Two is price. And three is capacity, volume. Those three things are invaluable. Then the rest is building relationships and all that. But I think if we look at things in that way, see, you know, there are more things now. Like one of the other important things, of course, is the segment, the market segment that you are going to supply. So that's where I was going to say niche markets, smaller markets are more suited for Sri Lanka. Okay, because, you know, and also I think Lamborghini markets are more suited for Sri Lanka because we are a smaller country. You know, I mean, let's not try to sell Lamborghinis from Lamborghinis all the way to Marutis, because those are different consumers.
Suresh, I
Okay.
might have to interrupt you a little bit. Thank you, because of the time constraint. We would like to take one question from at this moment from the participants. There are so many questions about the documentation process and how to find new buyers and market segment. Please reach out to EDB website, or Dr. Lakshmini has given a link I saw in the question and answer box. Please directly contact them. This is a different question. Actually, it's for Chin. Social media is now a large component of business, especially for the startups as SMEs. Social media definitely works in Sri Lanka, but does social media work in UK? I think in terms of business promotion and so on, I think that's the question on.
Yeah, I think it's a very a tricky question, Tanya. Well, as well as it's a tricky question, I'll be honest, and I'll give you a very honest answer for that. Yes and no. Why do I say that? Because that's the honest answer. But if you precisely ask me whether that works with the B2C, business to consumers, definitely does. Because one of the among the world, social media usage in the UK is over 97%. So over and above 80 plus people also use social media quite a lot. But they are still on a very pragmatic and a proportional level. What I mean by pragmatic and proportional level, they are into their daily watching of their movie or a clip or a news or some sort of a social thing. So whether the buyers can really get attracted from the social media campaign, I would be a bit reluctant to say yes for that. But then again, yes, definitely, if you happen to have a product being launched in the UK through your agent or a distributor, either your own brand or their private label or anything, work with your distributor and then get that your product promoted and make that awareness happen through the social media. Definitely it would work. 100% it would work for business to consumers. But business to business, for example, if you want to find the buyer, or if you want to find the like Suresh, if you want to find a supermarket, Suresh will explain the requirement of what you need to have to be done. Plus that, if you want to find if you want to use a social media to find a buyer, I would say think about before you spend money on it, because just going with normal social media wouldn't work. But there are prime services are available. I'll give you two simple example. Let's say LinkedIn. If you happen to use the LinkedIn, there's a payment of LinkedIn one that you can subscribe to the LinkedIn. You can get the buyer's details by subscribing into this LinkedIn. It's a premium service. Even with the YouTube, for example, if you look at the YouTube, you can see if there's an ad going on, you can skip the ad. But there are some ad you can't skip off, that you have to pay a premium for that. So if you're thinking of using the social media to get the buyer's attraction, you need to force the buyer to watch into that by going into this type of a premium subscription. Otherwise, think twice. Hope that helped.
And thank you very much, Chin. We will take one more question related to, I think it's directed to Lorian. Apart from the financial hurdle with the bank, then documentation too is stressful process for the business. What are the documents required by the bank to claim export proceeds? And is there any online resources that SMEs can access to get this update?
Yes, so really speaking, the requirement of document came into effect very recently, where the regulators brought in an instruction saying that all exporters need to repatriate their monies back to the country within 180 days. In order to ascertain this requirement, when a remittance hits to a bank, the banks require the exporter to furnish the data. So then that's by way of giving an invoice or maybe a castic or the bill of lading in order to verify whether it's export proceeds. And based on that, they send in a report to central bank. So it all depends on the method you handle, method of payment that you export to your buyer. So if you are going to export on maybe on open account terms, the banks don't know anything about that. They don't get to know anything upfront. Basically, when the money comes into the bank or the remittance hits the bank only or the client's account, at that moment, the bank queries on the exporter to say, confirm whether this is export proceeds or what. So in line with the regulations, we need to furnish the data to the regulator saying that this is export proceeds and this is what has come on the export that has been done by this particular client. So, but if you handle a payment term which is on DP or LC, so these are secured methods of payment where the banks themselves handle it and forward it to the buyer's bank. So those data, of course, are upfront provided by the exporter, and so there is no requirement for them to furnish it at the time the monies come to the country. So the monitoring part of the export proceeds repatriation is monitored by the bank, but when it comes to open account transaction, banks don't get involved into the documentation. So then this is where the exporters themselves need to furnish the required documents to the bank. So you find these the clients of, we have the option, we have our online banking system where the clients can access that and forward those relevant documents, or even an email of a particular transaction, we can match those transaction and we can update the data with the regulators. So it's not an issue in this. Only thing, the data needs to come to the banks in order to update the regulators on time. So one more thing, the recent regulations that they brought in, that there's a 24% conversion of the dollar remittance that export proceed. So that's been done. I think all the exporters know about that.
Okay, thanks a lot, Lauren. There is a different question. I'll open it to the panel. Whoever has expertise in this area can probably answer this. Given the shortage in labor since Brexit, are there opportunities for service outsourcing in the BPO industry post-COVID? What is the market like for these companies? Maybe Dr. Lakmini or can answer that in brief. I think we have to close the session very soon. Dr. Lakmini, so appreciate in brief your input on that.
Yeah, thank you, Tanya. Yes, we have seen, especially in the service sector as well, there is a demand. And maybe that I could refer to one event that we did with SLASCOM. That was called the Global Referral Program, where we, again, DB was also part of it. And what we did was we went to the diaspora and we wanted the professionals, actually British professionals, to introduce our services to their companies. So that was one area that we promoted. And yes, we see a lot of opportunities in the BPO sector, and we intend to have a webinar as well to discuss more about the fintech and other areas. Yes.
Thank you. There's a question, how has the skyrocketing freight rates affected exports? I would recommend, we have a session planned on coming Friday. So whoever has posted this question, please log into CBB website and look for that session, and maybe you can get some insight to what's happening with regard to the spike in freight rates and the capacities. So please do log in on Friday. So one more question we have now.
Tanya, can I just interrupt for a second? Yes. One, as an importer, I'm also struggling with freight availability. So if you would share that link, I would be happy to attend that. Two, about the BPO question, just to add to what Dr. Lakmini said, I have been independently doing some work on the BPO sector with some of the Sri Lankan BPO companies. And the state of the market in the UK at the moment it's quite mature, because the BPO industry started 20 years ago, and the big players are sort of in a very mature stage. So for new companies to enter into that, they have to provide a niche service. Like, for example, when there is a legislation change, there is a reporting change. For example, in accounting, there is a GDPR regulation, or there is an environmental green finance reporting or something like that. When there is a change, then the companies need some extra support. So it's for BPO companies to look into those areas and provide a specialized niche service will be important. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Tana. There's so many questions, but unfortunately we cannot answer them individually. But I'm sure during our session, we managed to address most of it. So in conclusion, on behalf of Commercial Bank PLC and CBB, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the speakers and the panelists for their valuable contribution to this session today. Our deepest gratitude goes to all who have attended this session and helped to make it much a successful event with over 250 participation. Please look out for the follow-up session in the next couple of weeks. I will now hand it over to Dirshan Fernando, Manager SME at Commercial Bank, to deliver the thank you note and conclude today's event. Stay safe, and I wish you all the very best. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Tanya. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We just concluded a very interactive and informative webinar conducted jointly by Commercial Bank and CBB, Council for Business with Britain. Export opportunity to Great Britain. We trust this webinar has provided all of our participants to gain lots of insights and knowledge, which will definitely assist them in their future endeavors. On behalf of the Commercial Bank, as one of the partners of this webinar, we wish to express our gratitude towards the team headed by Roshani of CBB, who came forward and joined hand with us to organize this important webinar. We also wish to thank Mr. Ranganathan, our CEO, and the management of the commercial bank for their continuous support extended to make this event a success. We received great support from Dignity of Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, who initiate most of the dialogues within our institution to move this event forward. We are indeed thankful to you, Dignity. We had a very eminent panel for this webinar, starting from Dr. Lakmini Mendis, Minister Commercial, representing Sri Lankan High Commission in UK, Mr. Suresh Dimel, Chairman, CEO of EDB, Sri Lanka, Mr. Lorian Somanatha, Chief Manager, Export Department of Commercial Bank, who shared their valuable insights which were more relevant for those who wishes to do business with UK and also to expand their existing business with UK. Madam, sir, please accept our gratitude for adding more color to this program. Further, our sincere thanks goes to Ms. Thana Sivasabbu, the founder and the CEO of Rusi Foods, Mr. Irfan Tassim, the CEO of Ocean Peak Private Limited, and Mr. Chin Pereira, the Director of Universal Supply Limited, for sharing their hands-on experience regarding the business that they currently continue with UK. Also, how they overcame the difficulties and challenges that they faced when doing business with UK. I hope this would give some encouragement to our participants who are willing to do business with UK. Tanya, our moderator, did a superb job of accommodating the entire webinar in a very meaningful manner, making it more fruitful one for the audience. Tanya, Council Member of CBB, please accept our sincere thanks. There were many more from Commercial Bank and CBB were behind this effort. Without their support, this event could not have become a reality. Dear friends, thank you very much for your tireless efforts toward this event. Finally, and more importantly, we wish to thank all the participants who registered and joined with us today. You have kept nearly more than 90 minutes, nearly 2 hours out of your busy schedule to be with us and gain more knowledge on export to Great Britain. Without your participation, this will not a successful one. Once again, thank you very much. Let me share a famous quotation from Mr. Henry Ford to conclude. Coming together is a beginning. Keeping together is progress. Working together is success. We have come together and it's very good beginning. Let us progress together and be successful in our endeavors. We as Commercial Bank will be with you always in your journey towards success. Thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you. Before we conclude, may I request from all the participants, please log into CBB website or contact Chamber of Commerce if you like to obtain membership of CBB. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.